What do all these people have in common? They're Jewish!
So let's start from the beginning with the history of the Jewish people. The Jewish people come from the same geographical area. Throughout time, Jewish people have felt that they are part of a community. The Jewish people share common values, traditions, and history of their ancestors dependent on whether or not they believe in God. Jewish people consider their nationality to be Jewish foremost, regardless of what country they reside in. The idea that Judaism is strictly a religion is a modern misconception. As clinicians, we should not assume that our Jewish patients automatically follow the Jewish faith, but we should be understanding that they may still follow many of the Jewish traditions and practices. Throughout history, the Jewish people have often been persecuted and disliked. In order to survive, the Jewish people have formed their similar values and mentalities. An important value that is part of the Jewish culture is commitment to their family and marriage. Spouses feel that they should always be together, whether it be sitting next to each other at a dinner party or going on a business trip. As practitioners, we should be understanding if our patient is always accompanied by a spouse during their appointments. Men and women who are very strong believers in the Jewish faith will not touch anyone of the opposite sex besides their spouse, not even shaking someone's hand. Women are believed to be naturally closer to God than men are in the Jewish religion. In order for men to be closer to God, they wear a kippah on their head when they are in their prayer room called a synagogue. As physical therapists, this is something important for us to remember when scheduling a person with these values. They feel very uncomfortable receiving care from a provider of the opposite gender. The Jewish people are very caring and feel obligated to take care of others. They prefer to take care of their elderly on their own as long as they can before sending them to an assisted living facility or nursing home. As physical therapists working on discharge planning, this is something that we will have to be understanding of.
People of the Jewish culture observe and worship on certain days of the year. Work is not permitted on a variety of the Jewish holidays, including Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. On days such as these, most work activities except cooking, baking, transferring fire, and carrying are prohibited. People of the Jewish culture also do not work during Shiva, which is a period of mourning after a close relative has passed. This usually lasts for 7 days. It is important to note these times of the year for patients who may abide by these traditions. A patient may or may not agree with a therapeutic procedure done on the day of Sabbath, which is usually Saturday, or any of the other holidays. It's also said that because the Jewish practice prohibits using electricity on these days, some patients will not even use light switches, adjust the bed, use the call button, or do anything with the telephone or television. These patients should not be discharged on the day of Sabbath or any of the biblical holidays because they cannot write, ride, or be transported in a motor vehicle. They also cannot carry objects out of the hospital. This is important to know as a clinician while working in the inpatient setting.
Kosher is a system of rules that some Jewish people use to determine the types of food that can be eaten, how that food is prepared, and combinations of food that can be eaten together. These laws were written in the ancient Hebrew texts of the Torah. Foods that are consistent with these rules are considered kosher. The word kosher is derived from the Hebrew word meaning to be fit or proper. Kosher is considered a way of showing devotion to God and has been a tradition since the beginning of Jewish history. Only certain foods are permitted as being kosher. Only land animals with cloven hooves and that chew cud can be eaten. Birds of prey, reptiles, amphibians, and insects are all prohibited. However, all fruits and vegetables are considered kosher as long as they are inspected and carefully inspected for hidden insects.
Grape products such as wine, berry-flavored beers, juices, and other grape products cannot be consumed unless produced by the Jewish community. Food preparation is also important. The slaughter of animals must be painless. Certain combinations of food are considered non-kosher. Meats and dairy cannot be consumed together. This separation must be consistent even during the cooking process. This ancient tradition is still followed in some Jewish communities. In 2000, the National Jewish Population Survey revealed that nearly 21% of American Jewish people follow kosher rules. These traditions for eating could affect physical therapists in many ways. As PTs, we need to be aware of Jewish eating customs in order to be sensitive in our conversations and interactions. Fasting is also taken very seriously in the Jewish culture. They believe fasting is good for both the body and spirit. They believe that the discomfort that is felt by fasting helps them to understand our human frailty. There are 6 days throughout the calendar year that are recognized as fasting days. Fasts are usually held in the daylight hours, but sometimes can be held during a full period of 24 hours. This is important to recognize when working with a patient. They may be fasting on a particular day, as this may impact their ability to complete what is required of them in therapy to their fullest extent.
The Jewish culture, just like many other cultures, has specific philosophies on health and healing, which revolve around religion and history. Throughout history, many Jewish communities set up systems to ensure that all their citizens had access to health care. They believed that wisdom should be used to cure illnesses, and because of this idea, doctors were required to reduce their rates for poor patients, and communal subsides were also established in order to provide care for everyone. Many Jewish people believe that prayer is the most powerful healing tool. This is often used in patient care, and this prayer is usually provided by a male. From a traditional American culture, these viewpoints might be seen as unnecessary when working with a Jewish patient in physical therapy. The patient may not fully understand the different aspects of physical treatment and might expect the therapist to use prayer and their wisdom to heal. This could lead to possible miscommunication if the patient nor the therapist fully understands each other's philosophies on healing and treatment. Because there is a large connection between the Jewish culture and the Jewish religion, many Jewish people believe that God owns everything, including their bodies. They believe that God has a set of rules regarding good hygiene, sleep, exercise, and proper diet. Their culture also believes that health is extremely important, and therefore danger and injury need to be avoided. This is important in the field of physical therapy because Jewish patients will have a general understanding of good health habits and will want to return to their daily lives with greater motivation. Because Jewish people avoid harm and injury, therapists might not come into contact with vast numbers of Jewish patients who suffer from common physical injuries. Knowing information about the Jewish culture will make you more culturally competent as a physical therapist.